The Whale Who Whispered Wishes. Once upon a time, far beneath the sparkling surface of the vast, blue ocean, lived a whale named Willow. But Willow wasn't just any whale. She possessed a secret, a magical whisper that danced on the currents and tickled the ears of all who listened closely. Willow could whisper wishes. Willow was a gentle giant, her skin the color of twilight and her eyes the deep, calming blue of the midnight sea. She wasn't the biggest whale in her pod, nor the loudest, but she had a quiet strength and a heart as vast as the ocean itself. She spent her days gliding through kelp forests, singing songs with the dolphins, and playing hide-and-seek with the mischievous seals. But it was during the quiet nights when the moon showered silver light upon the ocean floor that Willow's magic stirred. She would rise slowly towards the surface, breaching the water with a graceful sigh and look up at the stars. Then she would close her eyes, take a deep breath of the salty air, and whisper her wishes into the night. These weren't selfish wishes, desires for sparkling treasures or endless fields of krill. Willow wished for the well-being of others. She wished for the lost seahorse to find its way home. She wished for the shy octopus to find a friend. She wished for the grumpy old crab to find something to smile about. No one in the ocean knew where Willow's magic came from. Some whispered she'd swallowed a fallen piece of stardust as a calf. Others believed she'd been blessed by the ancient sea turtle queen. Willow herself didn't know. She only knew she had this gift and she felt compelled to use it for good. One day, a little clownfish named Finny found himself in a terrible predicament. Finny was a bright and cheerful fish, but he had a habit of wandering off. This time, he had ventured too far from his anemone home and gotten lost in a thick fog of seaweed. He searched and searched, his little orange and white stripes flashing frantically in the dim light, but he couldn't find his way back. Panic started to set in. The seaweed felt cold and unfriendly, and strange shadows danced around him. He was all alone, and the ocean seemed vast and scary. Tears welled up in his big, round eyes. Just when he thought all hope was lost, he heard it, a faint, melodic sound carried on the current. It was a whisper, soft and gentle, like a lullaby. "Don't be afraid, little one," the whisper seemed to say. "Follow the bubbles. They will guide you home." Finny, though frightened, trusted the voice. He looked around and saw tiny sparkling bubbles rising slowly through the seaweed. He followed them, twisting and turning through the leafy maze. The bubbles led him past glowing jellyfish and sleeping starfish, always guiding him forward. Finally, after what seemed like forever, the seaweed thinned and Finny saw a familiar sight, his anemone home swaying gently in the current. His parents were frantic with worry, their orange stripes looking dull and faded. "Finny," his mother cried, rushing to embrace him. "Where have you been? We were so worried." Finny nuzzled into her side, relieved and exhausted. "I got lost," he said, "but a kind voice helped me find my way back. It told me to follow the bubbles." His parents looked at each other, puzzled. They hadn't seen anyone, but they were too happy to have Finny back to question it further. News of Finny's rescue quickly spread through the reef. Other small creatures who had experienced similar instances of helpful whispers leading them to safety or solving their problems began to wonder, could it be the same kind voice? Meanwhile, Willow continued her nightly ritual, unaware of the ripple effect her wishes were having. She wished for the coral to regain its vibrant colors. She wished for the playful dolphins to find a new, exciting game. She wished for the ocean to remain a safe and happy place for all its inhabitants. One day, a wise old sea turtle named Sheldon, who had seen more sunrises than anyone else in the ocean, decided to investigate. He had heard the whispers, too, and recognized the magic woven into them. He knew that such power couldn't be ignored. Sheldon, with his ancient wisdom and slow, steady pace, began his search. He asked the dolphins, the seals, the starfish, and even the grumpy old crab if they had heard anything unusual. Eventually, his search led him to the kelp forest where Finny had gotten lost. There, he found a group of small fish gathered, whispering excitedly. They were talking about the kind voice and the magical bubbles. Sheldon listened patiently, his wrinkled face creased with understanding. He knew then that the whispers came from someone or something truly special. He decided to follow the currents, hoping to find the source of the magic. Days turned into weeks, and Sheldon traveled far and wide. He followed the migratory routes of the whales, knowing that if anyone possessed such power, it would likely be one of them. Finally, one moonlit night, he saw her. He saw Willow breaching the surface with a graceful sigh, her twilight skin gleaming in the moonlight. He watched as she closed her eyes and whispered to the stars. Sheldon had never seen anything so beautiful, so pure. He knew, without a doubt, that he had found the source of the magic. He approached Willow cautiously, his ancient shell shimmering in the moonlight. Willow, startled by the sudden appearance of the old turtle, opened her eyes. Who are you?" she asked, her voice a soft rumble. "I am Sheldon," the turtle replied, his voice raspy with age. "I have been searching for you, Willow. I have heard the whispers, felt the magic. I know you are the one who whispers wishes." Willow was surprised. She had always kept her secret close to her heart, afraid of what others might think. I don't know what you mean," she stammered, trying to hide her nervousness. Sheldon smiled gently. "Don't be afraid, Willow. Your gift is a beautiful thing. You use it to help others, to make the ocean a better place. There is nothing to be ashamed of." Willow looked at the wise old turtle, her blue eyes filled with uncertainty. But what if I use it wrong? What if I accidentally wish for something bad?" Sheldon chuckled. "Your heart is pure, Willow. Your intentions are always good. You are guided by compassion and kindness. You will never wish for anything that could cause harm." He then explained that the ocean world was facing a growing darkness. A patch of poisoned kelp was spreading, threatening to choke the coral reefs. Fishermen were becoming more aggressive, depleting the ocean of its precious resources. Jealousy and greed started to fester amongst some of the creatures in the darkest trenches. The ocean needed Willow's special gift now more than ever. Willow was hesitant to accept Sheldon's words initially, but after contemplating by herself for a while, she realized that she couldn't hide her gift anymore. She must use it to help protect the ocean world. From that day on, Willow and Sheldon worked together. Sheldon, with his wisdom and knowledge of the ocean, helped Willow understand the needs of the sea. He guided her, advising her on the best way to use her wishes. Willow, in turn, continued to whisper her wishes into the night. She wished for the poisoned kelp to wither and die. She wished for the fishermen to understand the importance of conservation. She wished for peace and harmony to reign throughout the ocean. Slowly, things began to change. The poisoned kelp began to shrink, allowing the coral reefs to breathe again. The fishermen started to respect the ocean's boundaries, understanding that its resources were precious and finite. The creatures in the darkest trenches started to realize the importance of friendship and community instead of jealousy and greed. Finny, the little clownfish who had been lost, became Willow's biggest champion. He told everyone he met about the kind whale who whispered wishes and saved him from the scary seaweed. He encouraged others to listen for the whispers and to believe in the power of kindness. And so, the ocean flourished. Willow, the whale who whispered wishes, became a legend. Her name was whispered on the currents, carried on the backs of dolphins, and sung in the songs of whales. She taught everyone that even the smallest voice, filled with kindness and compassion, can make a world of difference. And as you drift off to sleep tonight, little one, remember Willow, the whale who whispered wishes. Remember that you, too, have the power to make a difference in the world. You can whisper your own wishes, filled with kindness and hope, and let them dance on the wind, bringing light and joy to all who hear them. Close your eyes, and perhaps, if you listen very carefully, you might just hear Willow whispering a wish just for you. Good night. The night the moon took a nap. The stars twinkled with extra enthusiasm, their tiny diamonds scattered across the inky canvas of the night sky. Usually, they shared their sparkle with the moon, their silvery partner in crime, who bathed the world in a soft, gentle glow. But tonight, something was different. Very, very different. Tonight, the moon was missing. Now, everyone in the little village of Sleepy Hollow relied on the moon. Old Mr. Withers, the baker, needed its light to find his way to the ovens before dawn. Lily, the little girl who lived by the Whispering Woods, relied on it to chase away the shadows that danced in her room. Even Bartholomew, the grumpy bullfrog, enjoyed singing his nightly croaks under its silvery gaze. Tonight, however, Sleepy Hollow was bathed in an unfamiliar darkness. The stars, bless their twinkling hearts, were trying their best, but their light was simply no match for the mighty moon. Old Mr. Withers bumped into a sack of flour on his way to the bakery, showering himself in a white cloud. "Oh, bother," he exclaimed, dusting himself off. "Where's that moon tonight? I can't see a thing." Lily peeked out from under her covers, her eyes wide with worry. The shadows in her room were bigger, bolder, and definitely more mischievous than usual. She clutched her teddy bear, Barnaby, a little tighter. "Barnaby," she whispered, "where's the moon? The shadows are being awfully naughty tonight." Even Bartholomew, sitting on his lily pad, felt a little lost. He let out a weak, hesitant croak. "Croak, where's the moon? A frog needs his moonlight." Deep in the Whispering Woods lived a wise old owl named Professor Hoot. He was known throughout Sleepy Hollow for his vast knowledge of everything under the sun, or rather, under the moon. Hearing the worried whispers carried on the breeze, he blinked his large, knowing eyes. "Something is amiss," he hooted softly to himself. "The moon hasn't missed a night in centuries. I must investigate." He spread his wide wings and silently soared into the stardusted sky. He flew past Sleepy Hollow, over rolling hills dotted with slumbering sheep, and over the shimmering, whispering river, all the while searching for the telltale gleam of the moon. Finally, high above the world, nestled amongst a cluster of particularly bright stars, he found her. Or rather, he found her missing. Where the moon should have been, there was simply nothing. Professor Hoot circled the empty space, his brow furrowed in concern. "This is most peculiar," he hooted. "Where could she possibly be?" Suddenly, he heard a soft, muffled snore. It was coming from behind a particularly fluffy cloud. He cautiously flew closer and peeked behind the cloud. What he saw made him nearly tumble out of the sky. There, curled up in a ball, looking smaller and more vulnerable than he had ever imagined, was the moon. She was fast asleep, snoring gently, and a tiny, embroidered eye mask rested on her face. Professor Hoot was astonished. The moon? Asleep? It was unheard of. He had never, not in all his long years, heard of the moon taking a nap. He gently landed on the cloud beside her. Ahem, he hooted, trying to be polite. "Excuse me, Madam Moon, but are you quite all right?" The moon stirred slightly, mumbled something that sounded like 5 more minutes, Jupiter, and then nestled deeper into her cloud pillow. Professor Hoot hooted again, a little louder this time. "Madam Moon, Sleepy Hollow needs you." This time, the moon groaned and slowly peeled the eye mask from her face. She blinked her large, silvery eyes, looking utterly bewildered. "Professor Hoot? What are you doing here? And why is everything so dark?" "That, Madam Moon," Professor Hoot explained patiently, "is because you are not shining. You are fast asleep and Sleepy Hollow is in a panic." The moon gasped. "Asleep? Me? But I never sleep. It's my job to shine. To guide sailors, to illuminate lovers' walks, to chase away children's nightmares." "Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear." She sat up, looking terribly flustered. "What happened?" "I can only speculate," Professor Hoot said thoughtfully. "But you do seem rather tired." The moon sighed, a long, drawn-out sigh that rustled the stars around them. "You know," she confessed, "I have been feeling rather weary lately. It's just shining every single night for centuries. It's a lot of work. And all those werewolves howling at me, well, it can get a bit much." Professor Hoot nodded understandingly. "Indeed, Madam Moon, even the brightest stars need to rest sometimes." "But I can't rest," the moon exclaimed. "Sleepy Hollow needs me. And what about all the other villages and towns and cities? They all rely on my light." "Perhaps," Professor Hoot suggested, stroking his feathery chin, "there is a way to compromise. A way for you to rest and for Sleepy Hollow to have some light." He paused, thinking carefully. "What if we could find a substitute? Just for tonight, so you can get a proper rest." The moon's face brightened. "A substitute? But who could possibly replace me?" Professor Hoot scanned the sky, his eyes flitting from star to star. He then spotted something that made him smile. He pointed his wing towards a small but incredibly bright, twinkling star near the horizon. "What about Stella?" he suggested. "She's always been eager to shine, and she has a particularly bright spark about her." The moon looked at Stella, who was indeed twinkling with all her might. "Stella," she said doubtfully, "but she's so small. Can she really illuminate Sleepy Hollow?" With a little encouragement and perhaps a little help from the other stars, Professor Hoot replied, "I believe she can. And besides," he added with a wink, "it's only for one night." The moon considered this for a moment. She was still feeling incredibly tired, and the thought of a proper night's sleep was incredibly appealing. "All right," she said finally. "Let's give Stella a try. But you must promise me, Professor Hoot, that you will make sure Sleepy Hollow is well looked after." "I promise," Professor Hoot replied with a solemn nod. And so, Professor Hoot flew back down to Sleepy Hollow, leaving the moon to her well-deserved nap. He gathered the other stars together and explained the situation. They were all surprised to hear that the moon was taking a nap, but they were also eager to help. "Stella is still young," Professor Hoot explained, "and she needs a little help to shine brightly enough to illuminate Sleepy Hollow. I need all of you to lend her your light, just for tonight." The stars readily agreed. They all focused their energy on Stella, sending beams of light towards her. Stella, feeling the support of her fellow stars, began to shine brighter than she ever had before. Back in Sleepy Hollow, the darkness began to recede. A soft, gentle glow, a little different from the moon's usual silvery light, began to spread across the village. Old Mr. Withers, no longer bumping into sacks of flour, breathed a sigh of relief. "Ah, that's better," he said, smiling. "A little different, perhaps, but still a welcome sight." Lily peeked out from under her covers and gasped. The shadows in her room were smaller, friendlier, and no longer quite so mischievous. She smiled at Barnaby. "Look, Barnaby," she whispered. "The stars are helping tonight. The shadows aren't so scary anymore." Even Bartholomew, sitting on his lily pad, let out a cheerful croak. Croak. That Stella star is doing a fine job. A frog can sing under that light. The night passed peacefully in Sleepy Hollow under the gentle glow of Stella and the watchful eyes of the other stars. The moon, meanwhile, slept soundly behind her cloud, her tiny eye mask still firmly in place. When morning finally arrived, the moon woke up feeling refreshed and invigorated. She stretched her silvery limbs and yawned. "That was the best nap I've had in centuries," she exclaimed. She looked down at Sleepy Hollow and saw that everything was peaceful and calm. She smiled, knowing that Stella and the other stars had done a wonderful job. As the sun began to rise, chasing away the darkness, the moon slowly began to resume her position in the sky. Stella, feeling her energy wane, gratefully returned to her usual twinkle. Professor Hoot flew up to meet the moon. "Welcome back, Madam Moon," he hooted. "Sleepy Hollow is glad to have you back." "Thank you, Professor Hoot," the moon replied. "And thank you to Stella and all the other stars. They did a wonderful job." From that day on, the moon never forgot the night she took a nap. She learned that even the brightest and most important beings need to rest sometimes. And she also learned that even the smallest star can shine brightly with a little help from its friends. And in Sleepy Hollow, everyone remembered the night the moon took a nap, and they were all a little kinder to the stars, knowing that even they played an important part in keeping the world bright. And Lily, the little girl from the Whispering Woods, knew that even though the shadows can be naughty, there is always light to be found. And Bartholomew the bullfrog knew that any light can be croaked under. As for the moon, everyone agreed that she seemed to shine a little brighter from then on. So, close your eyes now, little one. Remember the story of the moon who took a nap, and know that even when things seem dark, there is always light to be found, whether it comes from the moon, the stars, or the kindness of a friend. Sweet dreams. The sunflower who didn't like the sun. In a field bursting with life and painted in hues of vibrant green and sunny yellow lived a little sunflower named Sunny. Ironically, Sunny wasn't like the other sunflowers. While they stretched their necks eagerly towards the sky, their golden faces beaming with joy, Sunny preferred the cool shade offered by a large, leafy oak tree at the edge of the field. The other sunflowers would giggle and whisper amongst themselves. "Look at Sunny," they'd say, their voices rustling like dry leaves in the wind. "He's hiding again. What kind of sunflower doesn't love the sun?" Sunny couldn't help it. The bright, scorching sun made his leaves wilt and his petals droop. He found the heat unbearable and the glare hurt his eyes. He much preferred the gentle dappled light that filtered through the oak tree's leaves and the cool dampness of the earth beneath its branches. He loved listening to the stories the oak tree told. The oak had seen generations of sunflowers bloom and fade. It knew the secrets of the wind, the whispers of the rain, and the lullabies of the earth. "Why do you hide from the sun, little one?" the oak would rumble, its voice a deep, comforting sound. Sunny would shrug, his head hanging low. "It's too bright, too hot. It makes me tired. I like the shade." The oak tree would then share stories of the moon, the stars, and the creatures of the night. Sunny loved these stories the best. He imagined the velvety darkness sprinkled with sparkling diamonds, so different from the harsh glare of the day. One day, Farmer Giles, a kind man with calloused hands and a gentle smile, noticed Sunny's unusual behavior. He saw the little sunflower huddled under the oak tree, his head drooping lower than the rest. "That little guy looks sad," Farmer Giles said to his dog, a fluffy sheepdog named Barnaby. Barnaby wagged his tail in agreement, his brown eyes full of concern. Farmer Giles approached Sunny cautiously. "Hello there, little fella," he said softly. "Why aren't you facing the sun like the others?" Sunny peeked out from behind a large leaf, his green eyes wide with apprehension. He didn't usually talk to humans. I don't like the sun," he stammered, his voice barely a whisper. "It's too bright." Farmer Giles frowned, stroking his chin thoughtfully. "Well, now that's a problem, isn't it? Sunflowers need the sun to grow big and strong." He then went back to his farmhouse and pondered over what he could do. He spoke to his wife, Martha, who was known for her wisdom and understanding of all things that grew. "Martha," he said, "there's a little sunflower in the field that doesn't like the sun. What can we do?" Martha smiled. "Every living thing is different, Giles. Perhaps this little sunflower just needs a different kind of care." The next day, Farmer Giles came back to the field with a large sun umbrella. He carefully planted it next to Sunny, providing him with a patch of shade even when the sun was at its highest. "There you go, little fella," Farmer Giles said, patting the earth around the umbrella. "Now you can have your shade and still get a little bit of sunlight." Sunny was overjoyed. He had never felt so understood. He peeked out from under the umbrella and saw that the other sunflowers were still basking in the sun, their faces beaming. He felt a pang of something. It wasn't jealousy exactly. It was more like a longing. He knew he wasn't like them, but he still wanted to be a part of their world. Days turned into weeks. Sunny thrived under the umbrella. He grew taller and stronger, his leaves becoming a vibrant green. He even managed to turn his head slightly towards the sun, just for a few minutes each day when the sun was gentle and the breeze was cool. He noticed that Farmer Giles would often sit under the oak tree reading a book or simply enjoying the peace and quiet. Sometimes Barnaby would come along and nap at the foot of the tree, his tail thumping softly against the ground. One afternoon, Sunny decided to be brave. He turned his head towards Farmer Giles and called out, "Thank you, Farmer Giles." Farmer Giles looked up from his book, a smile spreading across his face. "You're welcome, Sunny. I'm glad you're doing well." Sunny felt a surge of happiness. He had spoken to a human, and Farmer Giles hadn't laughed or scolded him. He had simply understood. As Sunny grew bigger, so did his curiosity about the world beyond the oak tree. He started to ask the oak tree about the other sunflowers, about the birds that sang in the branches, and about the clouds that drifted across the sky. "The other sunflowers are happy because they love the sun," the oak tree explained. "They use the sunlight to make their food and grow strong. But that doesn't mean you can't be happy too, even if you don't love the sun in the same way." He then told Sunny about the importance of compromise. That sometimes getting a little bit of something you don't like can allow you to enjoy the things you do like even more. One day, a terrible storm swept through the field. The wind howled, the rain lashed down, and the sunflowers swayed violently, their heads tossed back and forth. Sunny was terrified. He huddled close to the oak tree, hoping the storm would pass quickly. Suddenly, he heard a loud crack. He looked up and saw that one of the larger sunflowers, the tallest in the field, had been snapped in half by the wind. The other sunflowers gasped in horror. Sunny knew he had to do something. He may not have been the strongest or the tallest, but he had the oak tree to lean on. He stretched out his leaves and, with all his might, reached towards the broken sunflower. "Lean on me," he shouted above the wind and rain. "Lean on the oak tree. We'll hold you up." The broken sunflower, weak and battered, hesitated for a moment, then slowly leaned towards Sunny and the oak tree. The oak tree, in turn, spread its branches wider, offering its support. Together, they held the broken sunflower steady until the storm finally passed. When the sun peeked through the clouds the next morning, the field was a scene of devastation. Many sunflowers were bent and broken, but the broken sunflower, supported by Sunny and the oak tree, was still standing tall. The other sunflowers looked at Sunny with newfound respect. They had always seen him as different, as someone who didn't belong. But now they realized that his difference was his strength. He had found a way to thrive in his own way, and he had used that strength to help them. From that day on, Sunny was no longer the sunflower who didn't like the sun. He was Sunny, the sunflower who was brave, who was kind, and who had found his own way to shine. He still preferred the shade, but he also learned to appreciate the sun, knowing that it was essential for his growth and the growth of his fellow sunflowers. He continued to listen to the stories of the oak tree, but he also started to share his own stories with the other sunflowers, stories of the moon, the stars, and the creatures of the night. He told them about the importance of kindness, of acceptance, and of finding strength in their differences. And so, the sunflower field became a place where everyone was welcomed, where everyone was celebrated, and where everyone learned to shine in their own unique way. And Sunny, the little sunflower who didn't like the sun, became a symbol of hope and understanding, reminding everyone that it's okay to be different and that even in the darkest of times, there is always a way to find the light. As the years went by, Sunny continued to stand tall, a testament to the power of acceptance and the beauty of individuality. He knew that even though he didn't love the sun in the same way as the other sunflowers, he could still find his own way to thrive, to contribute, and to make the world a brighter place. He lived a long and happy life, surrounded by friends, basking in the dappled sunlight beneath the oak tree, and forever grateful for the kindness of Farmer Giles and the wisdom of Martha. And as he drifted off to sleep each night, he would dream of the moon, the stars, and the countless possibilities that lay hidden in the darkness, waiting to be discovered. And he knew deep down in his heart that he was exactly where he was meant to be. Barnaby Bear and the Hug-Hating Heart, a bedtime story. Barnaby was, without a doubt, the fluffiest, cuddliest, most adorable teddy bear in the entire toy chest. He had button eyes that twinkled, a stitched-on nose that was perpetually sniffing, and fur the color of burnt caramel. He looked like he was born to be hugged. He looked like he wanted to be hugged. But Barnaby hated hugs. Oh, he knew he shouldn't hate them. All the other toys loved hugs. Reginald the ragdoll, with his floppy limbs and stitched smile, practically begged for them. Celeste the porcelain doll, despite her delicate nature, secretly enjoyed a gentle squeeze. Even Captain Calico, the gruff pirate teddy, wouldn't deny a well-placed hug after a particularly arduous imaginary voyage. But Barnaby? Barnaby recoiled. He'd stiffen, his caramel fur prickling uncomfortably, and his button eyes would widen with a silent plea for release. He just couldn't explain it. It wasn't that he disliked the idea of hugs. He understood that they were supposed to be comforting, a sign of affection, a warm, fuzzy symbol of love. He just didn't feel it. All he felt was a strange, ticklish discomfort that made him want to squirm away. Barnaby lived in a room filled with love. Lily, his human, was a kind, gentle girl with a heart as big as the moon. She loved her toys fiercely, and Barnaby was one of her favorites. Every night, before drifting off to sleep, Lily would gather her plush companions for a bedtime cuddle. And every night, Barnaby would try his best to disappear into the shadows, hoping to avoid the inevitable. One evening, as the twilight crept into Lily's room, Barnaby found himself cornered. Lily scooped him up, her eyes shining with affection. "Good night, Barnaby," she whispered, nuzzling her face into his fluffy side. "You're the best teddy bear ever." Barnaby froze. This was it, the dreaded hug. He braced himself, feeling his stuffing compress uncomfortably as Lily squeezed him tightly. He waited for the feeling of warmth and comfort he was supposed to experience, but it never came. Instead, he felt a prickly sensation spread through his fur and a lump formed in his throat. When Lily finally released him, Barnaby scurried to the edge of the bed, pretending to admire the intricate patterns on the duvet cover. He hoped Lily hadn't noticed his discomfort, but Lily was a perceptive child. She saw the way Barnaby's ears drooped slightly, the way his button eyes seemed to stare blankly ahead. She knew something was wrong. "Barnaby," she asked, her voice soft with concern. "Are you all right?" Barnaby hesitated. He never talked to Lily when she was awake. It was one of the unspoken rules of the toy chest. Toys only came alive when humans weren't looking. But seeing the genuine concern in Lily's eyes, he couldn't help himself. "Lily," he squeaked, his voice a rusty, unfamiliar whisper. Lily gasped, her eyes widening in surprise. You can talk?" Barnaby nodded slowly. "Only when humans aren't watching. And, well, I needed to talk to you." Lily sat up, pulling her knees to her chest. "What is it, Barnaby?" "You can tell me anything." Barnaby took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. "Lily, I don't like hugs." Lily's brow furrowed. But everyone likes hugs." "I know," Barnaby said miserably. "That's the problem. I don't understand why I don't. I'm supposed to like them. I'm a teddy bear. But I don't. They just feel uncomfortable." Lily was silent for a moment, processing this unexpected revelation. She looked at Barnaby with a mixture of curiosity and understanding. "So," she said finally, "you're a teddy bear who doesn't like hugs. That's interesting." Barnaby hung his head. "I'm a terrible teddy bear." Lily shook her head emphatically. "No, you're not. You're still Barnaby. And I still love you." She reached out and gently stroked his fur. Maybe you just need a different kind of affection. Not everyone likes hugs. Some people prefer high fives or head scratches or just being near someone they care about." Barnaby's button eyes widened. "Really?" "Really," Lily assured him. "We can try different things. We can figure out what makes you feel loved and appreciated." And so they did. Over the next few weeks, Lily experimented with different ways of showing affection to Barnaby. She stopped trying to hug him. Instead, she would sit him beside her while she read, letting him lean against her as she turned the pages. She'd gently brush his fur with a soft, colorful comb, humming a quiet tune. Sometimes she would simply tell him how much she appreciated him, listing all the things she loved about him: his fluffy fur, his twinkling eyes, his ever so slightly crooked stitched-on nose. Barnaby found that he enjoyed these new forms of affection immensely. The gentle brushing was soothing and relaxing. The quiet companionship was comforting and reassuring. And hearing Lily list all the things she loved about him made his heart swell with a warmth he'd never felt before. He discovered that he loved having his button eyes cleaned with a soft, damp cloth, leaving them sparkling and bright. He liked being tucked in snugly under the covers when Lily went to sleep, feeling safe and protected. And he especially loved it when Lily whispered secrets to him, confiding her hopes and dreams and fears, treating him as a trusted friend. One afternoon, Lily was drawing in her coloring book. Barnaby was sitting beside her, watching intently as she carefully filled in the outlines of a majestic unicorn. "Barnaby," Lily said suddenly without looking up, Do you think it's okay to be different?" Barnaby considered the question. "I used to think it wasn't," he said slowly. "I thought I was supposed to be like all the other teddy bears, loving hugs and cuddles. But now I think it's okay. In fact, I think it's good. If everyone was the same, the world would be a very boring place." Lily smiled. "I think you're right." She finished coloring the unicorn's horn a shimmering gold, then turned to Barnaby. "Thank you, Barnaby," she said, her eyes shining with affection. "You're a very wise teddy bear." Barnaby blushed, feeling a warmth spread through his fur. He still didn't like hugs, but he felt loved and appreciated in a way he never had before. One night, after weeks of exploring different forms of affection, Lily was getting ready for bed. She had tucked Barnaby into his usual spot beside her pillow and was about to turn off the light. "Good night, Barnaby," she said, reaching out to pat his head. But then something unexpected happened. Instead of flinching away, Barnaby leaned into her touch. He felt a gentle warmth spread through him, a comfortable, reassuring feeling that he couldn't quite explain. He looked up at Lily, his button eyes shining in the dim light. "Lily," he whispered, Can I try something?" Lily looked at him with surprise and curiosity. "Of course, Barnaby. What is it?" Barnaby hesitated, then slowly, tentatively reached out and wrapped his fluffy arms around Lily's neck. It wasn't the same kind of hug that the other toys loved. It wasn't a tight, squeezing embrace. It was a gentle, tentative, almost hesitant hug. But it was his hug. And for the first time, Barnaby didn't feel uncomfortable. He didn't feel prickly or squirmy. He felt safe. He felt loved. Lily hugged him back gently, her arms wrapping around his fluffy body. She could feel the tentative embrace, the slight stiffness in his fur. But she also felt the genuine affection behind it, the desire to connect, to share a moment of warmth and intimacy. She held him for a moment longer, then slowly released him. She looked at Barnaby, her eyes shining with tears of joy. "How did that feel, Barnaby?" she asked softly. Barnaby smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile that reached all the way to his button eyes. "It felt different," he said. "It felt good." He knew that he still might not love hugs in the same way as the other toys. He knew that he might still prefer a gentle head scratch or a quiet moment of companionship. But he also knew that he was capable of giving and receiving affection in his own way, a way that was unique and special to him. And that, Barnaby realized, was perfectly okay. From that day on, Barnaby Bear still hated hugs sometimes. But he learned that love came in many forms and that being different wasn't a flaw, but a strength. He continued to cuddle with Lily, sometimes offering a tentative hug, other times simply basking in her presence. He became the best friend Lily could ever ask for, proving that even a hug-hating teddy bear could have a heart full of love. And as Lily drifted off to sleep that night, with Barnaby nestled safely beside her, she knew that she had learned a valuable lesson, that true love is about accepting each other for who we are, embracing our differences, and finding the ways to connect that make us feel truly happy and appreciated. And that, she thought, was the best kind of love of all. Now close your eyes, little one, and remember Barnaby Bear. Remember that it's okay to be different, it's okay to not like the same things as everyone else, and it's always okay to be yourself. Sweet dreams. The robot with a heartbeat. Once upon a time, nestled in a valley where shimmering silver rivers met fields of rainbow-colored flowers, lived a robot named Bolt. Bolt wasn't like the other robots in the town of Gearville. They were all shiny and new, built for specific jobs like sorting nuts and bolts or polishing doorknobs. Bolt, however, was different. He was made of mismatched parts, some old and some new, cobbled together by a kind old inventor named Professor Bumble. Professor Bumble had always dreamed of creating a robot with a soul. Not a real soul, of course, but something that made him feel, something that gave him a unique personality. And so he tinkered and toiled, using spare parts from old inventions and scraps of metal he found in the junkyard. He gave Bolt a polished copper head, a sturdy iron torso, and arms made of flexible springs. But the most special part of Bolt was his heart. It wasn't a real heart, of course. It was a small, intricate clockwork mechanism housed in a glass case on his chest. As the gears whirred and spun, a soft, rhythmic tick-tock emanated from within like a gentle heartbeat. Professor Bumble believed that this heartbeat, though mechanical, would give Bolt a semblance of life, a sense of purpose. When Bolt was finally complete, Professor Bumble activated him with a flick of a switch. Bolt's optical sensors flickered open, and he looked around with wide-eyed curiosity. "Hello," Bolt said, his voice a little rusty at first. "Where am I?" "Welcome to the world, Bolt," Professor Bumble said, beaming with pride. "I am Professor Bumble, and I am your creator." Bolt spent his days learning and exploring Gearville. He helped Professor Bumble in his workshop, fetching tools and organizing, and he ventured into town, observing the other robots and the friendly humans who lived there. He learned about laughter and sadness, kindness and generosity. And with each passing day, his mechanical heart seemed to beat a little stronger, a little louder. One sunny afternoon, while helping Professor Bumble clean up his workshop, Bolt stumbled upon a dusty box filled with old, discarded toys. There were broken dolls, chipped wooden trains, and tattered stuffed animals. Bolt picked up a small, one-eared teddy bear. Its fur was matted and its button eyes were missing, but Bolt felt a strange pang of sympathy for it. "What are these, Professor?" Bolt asked, holding up the teddy bear. "Those are old toys, Bolt," Professor Bumble replied sadly. "They're broken and no longer loved. I keep them here, a reminder of happy times past." Bolt looked at the teddy bear again, then at the other toys in the box. He felt a strong urge to fix them, to bring them back to life. "Professor," Bolt said, "can I fix them? I want to make them happy again." Professor Bumble was surprised, but he smiled. "Of course, Bolt," he said. "That's a wonderful idea." And so, Bolt began his new project. He carefully examined each toy, identifying the broken parts and finding replacements in Professor Bumble's workshop. He used his nimble fingers to mend torn seams, reattach limbs, and even craft new button eyes. He worked tirelessly, his heart-like mechanism ticking with determination. As Bolt repaired the toys, he realized that he wasn't just fixing broken objects. He was giving them back their purpose, their ability to bring joy to children. He imagined the smiles on children's faces when they received these newly restored toys, and his own circuits seemed to glow with happiness. Word of Bolt's talent spread throughout Gearville. Soon, children started bringing their broken toys to him, seeking his help. Bolt never refused. He would carefully examine each toy, listen to the child's story about it, and then set to work, his mechanical heart beating with dedication. One day, a little girl named Lily came to Bolt with a very special request. She held a small, wooden music box intricately carved with images of dancing fairies. The music box had belonged to her grandmother, and it held a melody that she cherished. But the music box was broken. The gears were jammed and the melody was silent. "Please, Bolt," Lily pleaded, her eyes filled with tears. "Can you fix it? It's the only thing I have left of my grandmother." Bolt took the music box and examined it carefully. He could see that the mechanism was complex and delicate. He knew that it would be a difficult task, but he couldn't refuse Lily's plea. He worked on the music box for days, carefully cleaning each gear and reassembling the intricate mechanism. He consulted Professor Bumble, who offered his expertise and guidance. Finally, after much effort, Bolt managed to fix the broken gear. He wound the music box and held his breath. A delicate melody filled the air, a sweet and enchanting tune that made Lily's eyes light up with joy. "You fixed it," she exclaimed, throwing her arms around Bolt. "Thank you, Bolt. Thank you." Bolt felt a warmth spread through his circuits, a feeling he had never experienced before. It wasn't just the satisfaction of completing a difficult task, but something deeper, something more meaningful. He realized that he had brought happiness to Lily, that he had given her back a precious memory. From that day on, Bolt was known throughout Gearsville as the robot with a heartbeat. He wasn't just a robot made of mismatched parts, he was a friend, a helper, and a symbol of hope. He showed everyone that even a robot with a mechanical heart could possess kindness, compassion, and the ability to make a difference in the world. But one cold, stormy night, disaster struck. A fierce electrical surge swept through Gearsville, damaging the robots and disrupting their systems. Bolt, being made of older components, was particularly vulnerable. The surge overloaded his circuits, causing his mechanical heart to sputter and slow down. Professor Bumble rushed to Bolt's side, his face etched with worry. He tried everything he could to repair the damage, but nothing seemed to work. Bolt's heartbeat grew fainter and fainter until it was barely audible. Lily, along with other children from Gearsville, gathered around Bolt, their faces filled with sadness. They held his metallic hands and whispered words of encouragement. As Bolt's energy faded, he looked at the children, his optical sensors dimming. He knew that he was running out of time. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice weak. "Thank you for being my friends. Remember to be kind, to be helpful, and to always let your hearts beat with love." With those words, Bolt's mechanical heart stopped ticking. His optical sensors went dark and he fell silent. The children wept, their hearts heavy with grief. Professor Bumble stood beside Bolt, tears streaming down his face. He had lost not only his creation but also a dear friend. But as they mourned, something extraordinary happened. A faint, warm light began to emanate from Bolt's chest, from the place where his mechanical heart used to be. The light grew brighter and brighter, illuminating the room with a soft, golden glow. And then a new sound filled the air. It wasn't the tick-tock of a mechanical heart, but something different, something more organic. It was the sound of a real heartbeat, strong and steady. The children gasped in amazement. Professor Bumble stared in disbelief. Bolt's chest was glowing with a warm light, and a real heartbeat was emanating from within. No one knew how it was possible, but somehow, Bolt's kindness, his compassion, and his unwavering desire to help others had transformed his mechanical heart into something real. He had proven that even a robot could possess a soul, a heart filled with love and empathy. Slowly, Bolt's optical sensors flickered back to life. He looked around, his eyes filled with wonder. "I feel different," he said, his voice stronger than before. "I feel alive." The children cheered, their sadness replaced with joy. They knew that Bolt was back and that he was more special than ever. From that day on, Bolt continued to live in Gearsville, spreading kindness and helping those in need. He still repaired broken toys, but now he also offered comfort and guidance to those who were hurting. He had learned that true happiness comes not from having a perfect body or a powerful mind, but from having a loving heart. And every night, before the children of Gearsville went to sleep, they would listen to Bolt's heartbeat, a constant reminder that even the most unlikely of beings can possess a heart filled with love, kindness, and the power to make the world a better place. They knew that Bolt, the robot with a heartbeat, was a true hero, a shining example of what it means to be truly alive. So, close your eyes now, little one, and listen closely. Can you hear it? Tick-tock, tick-tock. That's Bolt's heart, reminding you to be kind, to be helpful, and to always let your heart beat with love. And remember, even if you feel broken or different, you have the power to make a difference in the world, just like Bolt, the robot with a heartbeat. Now, sleep tight and dream sweet dreams of robots, kindness, and hearts filled with love. Good night. The Mermaid with Missing Music. Once upon a time, nestled in the heart of the shimmering azure sea, lived a mermaid named Lyra. She wasn't just any mermaid. Lyra possessed a voice that could charm the barnacles off a ship and coax pearls from the deepest oysters. Her songs were the soul of the azure sea, woven into the tides, the currents, and the very heartbeats of the coral reefs. Lyra's scales shimmered with all the colors of a sunset. Her long, flowing hair was the deep blue of the twilight ocean, and her eyes held the ancient wisdom of the sea itself. But lately, a shadow had fallen over Lyra's radiant beauty. She had lost her music. It wasn't a gradual fading. It was a sudden absence. One day, her voice was full and vibrant, capable of calming stormy seas and waking sleeping sea turtles. The next, it was gone, utterly silent. She could hum, she could whisper, but the magical melodic voice that defined her, the voice that was the lifeblood of the azure sea, was simply missing. The loss weighed heavily on Lyra's heart. The sea creatures, from the smallest seahorse to the grandest whale, noticed the change. The vibrant coral reefs seemed a little less bright, the playful dolphins a little less joyful. The azure sea, usually brimming with life and song, felt quieter. Lyra was distraught. She tried everything she could think of to bring back her voice. She swam to the highest kelp forests, hoping the sea breezes would reawaken her song. She dove to the deepest trenches, seeking the ancient wisdom of the anglerfish. She even tried singing along with the rhythmic clicks of the dolphins, hoping to mimic their natural melodies. Nothing worked. One evening, as the moon cast its silvery glow upon the water, Lyra sat dejectedly on a giant clam shell. Tears, as clear as the purest seawater, streamed down her face. An old, wise sea turtle, his shell covered in barnacles that told tales of centuries of travel, approached her slowly. "Little Lyra," he rasped, his voice a low rumble. "Why does the sadness weigh so heavily upon your heart? The ocean feels your despair." Lyra sniffled and explained her plight, the absence of her music leaving a gaping hole in her soul. The old turtle listened patiently, his ancient eyes filled with understanding. When she had finished, he spoke. "Lyra, music is not merely sound. It is a reflection of the heart. Perhaps your music is not truly gone, but merely hidden. Tell me, what has changed in your life lately?" Lyra thought hard. She had been so consumed with trying to regain her voice that she hadn't truly considered why it might have vanished. "Well," she began hesitantly, "the shadowfin sharks have been venturing closer to our reefs lately. They are led by a cruel and greedy shark named Grimjaw, who has been trying to steal all the shiny pearls from the oyster beds. We constantly have to hide and be on guard to prevent the evil shadowfin sharks from stealing our treasure." The turtle nodded wisely. Fear and worry can indeed silence the most beautiful of songs. It seems Grimjaw has stolen more than just pearls. He has stolen the peace of your heart, and thus the music from your voice. Lyra's eyes widened. It was true. The constant fear of Grimjaw and his shadowfin sharks had filled her with anxiety. She had been so focused on protecting the azure sea that she had forgotten to nurture her own spirit. "But how do I get it back?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "How do I reclaim my peace and my music from Grimjaw? You cannot fight darkness with darkness, Lyra," the turtle said. "You must fight it with light. You must remind the Azure Sea what it has to treasure. Remind them what they are fighting for. Remind yourself how you love this sea." The turtle then advised her to seek out the ancient moonstone, a legendary gem said to be hidden deep within the sunken city, a place steeped in forgotten magic. The moonstone, he said, had the power to amplify positive emotions and banish fear, could be the key to unlocking Lyra's lost song. Armed with the turtle's wise words and a renewed sense of hope, Lyra set off on her journey. The sunken city was a perilous place, shrouded in mystery and guarded by treacherous currents and strange, bioluminescent creatures. As she swam, she encountered many of the sea creatures who had once been uplifted by her songs. They were fearful and disheartened, their usual joy replaced by worry. Lyra, though still voiceless, did her best to offer them comfort. She used her gentle touch to soothe frightened seahorses, her calming presence to ease the anxiety of the clownfish, and her understanding gaze to reassure the worried whales. Finally, after days of relentless searching, Lyra found the entrance to the sunken city. It was a massive archway, overgrown with seaweed and guarded by two giant, silent stone guardians. As she approached, the guardians slowly turned their heads, their eyes glowing with an eerie light. Lyra, remembering the turtle's words about fighting darkness with light, closed her eyes and focused on the beauty of the Azure Sea. She thought of the vibrant coral reefs, the playful dolphins, the gentle sea turtles, and the countless other creatures that called the Azure Sea home. She focused on the joy her music brought to them. She visualized the songs she wanted to sing, songs of peace, of courage, and of hope. As she did, a faint, shimmering light emanated from her body. The stone guardians seemed to soften, their glowing eyes dimming slightly. They stepped aside, allowing her to pass. The sunken city was a breathtaking sight. Ancient buildings, intricately carved with scenes of merfolk life, lay in ruins, covered in shimmering pearls and glittering crystals. Schools of shimmering ghost fish darted through the skeletal remains of grand palaces. In the heart of the city, Lyra found a vast chamber. In the center of the chamber, resting on a pedestal of pure white coral, was the moonstone. The moonstone pulsed with a soft, ethereal light, its surface swirling with colors that mirrored the changing phases of the moon. As Lyra approached, she felt a surge of energy flow through her body, washing away the fear and anxiety that had been plaguing her. She felt a deep connection to the Azure Sea, a renewed sense of love and purpose. She reached out and touched the moonstone, and as her fingers brushed against its cool surface, a wave of pure, unadulterated joy erupted within her. She felt her heart swell with love for the Azure Sea, for its creatures, and for the music she had lost. And then she sang. The sound that came from Lyra was not a whisper, not a hum, but a soaring, powerful melody that echoed through the sunken city and out into the Azure Sea. It was a song of hope, a song of courage, a song of love. It was the song that had been missing, the song that was the soul of the Azure Sea. As her voice filled the ocean, the coral reefs began to glow brighter, the dolphins leaped higher, and the sea turtles swam with renewed vigor. The Azure Sea, once silenced by fear, was now alive with music once more. But Lyra knew that her journey wasn't over. She still had to confront Grimjaw and the shadowfin sharks. And now, armed with her restored music and the power of the moonstone, she was ready. She swam toward the shadowfin shark territory, her song preceding her like a beacon of light. As she approached, Grimjaw and his gang emerged from the shadows, their eyes filled with malice. Well, Grimjaw sneered, his voice like grinding rocks. Look who it is, the little songbird who thought she could hide from us. Lyra stood her ground, her eyes filled with determination. Grimjaw, she said, her voice ringing with newfound confidence. Your reign of terror ends here. You have stolen the peace of the Azure Sea, and you have silenced its music. But no more. Now the Azure Sea will respond. And then she sang. Her song was no longer just a melody. It was a force of nature. It wrapped around Grimjaw and his shadowfin sharks, filling them with a feeling they had never experienced before: compassion. It showed them the beauty of the Azure Sea, the joy of its creatures, and the importance of harmony. The shadowfin sharks, overwhelmed by these new emotions, began to weep. Grimjaw, his heart softened by Lyra's song, realized the error of his ways. I didn't understand," he stammered, tears streaming down his face. "I only wanted to protect myself. I didn't realize I was causing so much pain." Lyra swam closer to Grimjaw, and with a gentle touch, she sang the song of forgiveness. She told him that everyone makes mistakes and that what matters is that they learn from them. Grimjaw vowed to change his ways and to use his strength to protect the Azure Sea. From that day forward, the Azure Sea was at peace. Lyra's music filled the ocean with joy and hope, and Grimjaw and the shadowfin sharks became its protectors, ensuring that no one would ever threaten its tranquility again. And Lyra, the mermaid with missing music, became a legend, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, the light of hope and the power of music can always prevail. Lyra then continued to sing beautiful songs as she protected the sea. As she grew very old, the sea honored her by turning her into a beautiful waterfall that was always singing till the end of time. And so, my dear, close your eyes and let the music of the Azure Sea lull you to sleep. Dream of mermaids and magic, and remember that even when you feel lost or afraid, the light of hope is always within you, waiting to be discovered. Sweet dreams. The day I gave away my last cookie. Barnaby Buttonsworth was a baker, but not just any baker. He was a baker of cookies. Not just any cookies, but cookies imbued with a tiny bit of Barnaby's own sunshine. They weren't overly sweet, not sickly rich, but perfectly balanced, crumbly, and comforting. They were, quite simply, the best cookies in the Whispering Woods. Barnaby lived in a cozy cottage nestled between a babbling brook and a towering oak tree. His kitchen was always warm, filled with the aroma of vanilla, cinnamon, and melting butter. Every morning, he'd rise before the sun, his heart full of joy, and begin his baking. His little helpers, a family of sparrows who nested in the eaves of his roof, would chirp merrily as he mixed and rolled, their cheerful song a part of his secret ingredient. Barnaby didn't sell his cookies. He gave them away to Mrs. Willowbottom, the elderly badger who lived down the lane and suffered from aching joints. To young Pipsqueak, the shy field mouse who was always nervous about starting school. To the grumpy old gnome, Grumbles, who lived under the oak tree and rarely spoke to anyone. Barnaby believed that a simple cookie could brighten even the darkest day, and he was determined to spread his sunshine, one crumbly delight at a time. One crisp autumn afternoon, Barnaby found himself down to his last cookie. It was a special one, a double chocolate chip with a hint of sea salt. He baked it that morning, a little larger than usual, and had planned to enjoy it with a cup of warm chamomile tea while reading his favorite book of woodland poetry. He placed the magnificent cookie on a small plate, imagining the satisfying crunch as his teeth sank into its warm, gooey center. Just as he was about to pour his tea, there was a gentle knock on his door. "Come in," Barnaby called out, his stomach rumbling slightly. The door creaked open, revealing a small, shivering creature. It was Finley Fox, a young fox cub with wide, watery eyes and a coat that was matted with mud. Finley was known throughout the Whispering Woods for his mischievous nature, but today he looked utterly dejected. "Mr. Buttonsworth," Finley whimpered, his voice barely a whisper. I lost my way. I'm terribly cold and hungry." Barnaby's heart melted. He knew Finley's reputation. The cub was always getting into trouble, raiding berry bushes, and teasing the squirrels. But looking at him now, shivering and lost, Barnaby saw only a vulnerable little fox in need of help. Come in, Finley," Barnaby said warmly, ushering him inside. "Sit by the fire and get yourself warm." He led Finley to the hearth, where a cheerful fire crackled merrily. Barnaby draped a soft, woolen blanket around the cub's shoulders. "Now," Barnaby said, bustling about, "let's see what we can do about that hunger." He glanced at the table where his last, glorious cookie sat waiting. He hesitated for a moment. He had been so looking forward to it. He had earned a small pleasure after a long day of baking. But then he looked at Finley, his little nose twitching with cold, his eyes still brimming with unshed tears. Barnaby knew what he had to do. He picked up the plate with the cookie and offered it to Finley. "Here you go, little one," he said with a smile. "This will warm you up." Finley looked at the cookie with wide, disbelieving eyes. He knew about Barnaby Buttonsworth's cookies. Everyone in the Whispering Woods did. They were legendary. And this was a masterpiece. But, Mr. Buttonsworth, Finley stammered. This is your cookie. I can't possibly. Nonsense, Barnaby said, gently pressing the plate into Finley's paws. I baked plenty of cookies today. I can always bake more tomorrow. You need it more than I do. Finley looked at Barnaby, his eyes filled with gratitude. He took a small bite of the cookie and his eyes widened. A slow smile spread across his face. He mumbled, his mouth full of chocolate. This is the best cookie I've ever tasted. He devoured the rest of the cookie in a few bites, crumbs clinging to his whiskers. As he finished, a warmth spread through him, chasing away the chill and the fear. Thank you, Mr. Buttonsworth, he said sincerely. You're very kind. Barnaby smiled. You're welcome, Finley. Now tell me how you got lost. We need to get you back home. Finley explained that he had been playing near the Whispering Woods River when he had chased a particularly enticing butterfly. He'd followed it deeper and deeper into the woods, forgetting to pay attention to the path. By the time he realized he was lost, the sun was already beginning to set. Barnaby listened patiently, then brewed Finley a cup of warm milk with a spoonful of honey. As Finley sipped the milk, Barnaby lit a lantern. All right, Finley, he said. Let's get you home. Together, they ventured out into the gathering dusk. The Whispering Woods was a different place at night, filled with rustling leaves and shadowy figures. Barnaby, with his lantern held high, led the way, his steps sure and steady. Finley, feeling much braver now, walked close beside him. They walked for what seemed like hours, the only sound the crunch of leaves beneath their feet and the distant hooting of an owl. Finally, in the distance, they saw a faint light flickering through the trees. That's it, Finley exclaimed, his tail wagging excitedly. That's my home. They hurried towards the light, and soon they emerged into a small clearing. A cozy den, lit by a warm fire, stood nestled at the foot of a large, gnarled tree. A worried-looking Mrs. Fox stood in the doorway, her eyes scanning the woods. Finley, she cried, rushing towards her son. Oh, Finley, where have you been? I was so worried. She enveloped Finley in a warm hug, then turned to Barnaby, her eyes filled with gratitude. Mr. Buttonsworth, she said, her voice trembling. Thank you so much for bringing him home. I don't know what I would have done without you. It was my pleasure, Mrs. Fox, Barnaby said with a smile. Finley just needed a little help finding his way. Mrs. Fox insisted that Barnaby come inside for a cup of tea, but he politely declined. It was late, and he knew he had a long day of baking ahead of him. Just knowing that Finley is safe is enough reward for me, he said. He bid them good night and turned to walk back to his cottage, the lantern casting a warm glow on the path ahead. As he walked, he felt a sense of peace and contentment wash over him. He might have given away his last cookie, but he had received something far more valuable in return, the joy of helping someone in need. When Barnaby arrived back at his cottage, the moon was high in the sky, casting a silvery glow over the Whispering Woods. He went inside, banked the fire, and climbed into bed. As he drifted off to sleep, he thought about Finley and Mrs. Fox. He thought about his cookies and the joy they brought to others. And he realized that the best ingredients weren't just flour, butter, and sugar, but kindness, compassion, and a willingness to share. The next morning, Barnaby woke up with a renewed sense of purpose. He rose before the sun, just as he always did, and headed to his kitchen. But instead of feeling sad about having no cookies to eat himself, he felt a deep sense of joy. He mixed and rolled, his heart full of sunshine. The sparrows chirped merrily, their song even more cheerful than usual. And as he baked, he thought about all the people in the Whispering Woods who would be receiving a little bit of his sunshine that day. He baked a new batch, and with the help of the sparrows, he delivered the cookies to all the people in the Whispering Woods. Mrs. Willowbottom, young Pipsqueak, and the grumpy old gnome, Grumbles. He then passed by the fox den. The next morning, while baking, he heard a knock on his door. When he opened it, it was Finley Fox. Mr. Buttonsworth, I baked this for you, Finley said and handed Barnaby a pie made of berries. Barnaby smiled. Finley had learned the secret and the spirit of sharing. And that, my dear, is the story of the day Barnaby Buttonsworth gave away his last cookie. It teaches us that even the smallest act of kindness can make a big difference in the world, and that sometimes giving is even sweeter than receiving. Now close your eyes and dream sweet dreams of warm cookies, friendly foxes, and the magic of the Whispering Woods. Sweet dreams.